So, okay, now I'll hand it over to Vineet, who will take the first task, followed by Manohar.
So I hope the screen is visible and also my voice is audible.
Yeah, yeah, it is fine.
Yeah, okay. So hello everyone. First of all, good evening and thanks for joining. I know it's Sunday and thank you so much for joining in. So my name is Vineet. I will be discussing about the part one of week two's challenge that is based on linear regression. So let's have a debrief session. So we all know that machine learning algorithms, are broadly of three categories: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So this linear regression is a classic example of supervised learning. So supervised, as the name suggests, that there is an expert or a mentor to guide you whether you are doing it correct or you are going wrong. So there is an expertise available to guide you. That is what the meaning of supervised is. So in supervised learning, we basically have input variables or features called X, and also we have the output variable or target variables called Y. So we will be focusing on simple linear regression for this part one of this lab. So let me give you a quick gist of what linear regression is. So the ultimate aim of linear regression is, given the values of X and Y for the training, our aim is to formulate an equation so that while testing, if the input X is provided, the model needs to predict the most accurate value of Y. And that value of Y is a continuous variable. So let's actually understand things in depth. So the structure of today's presentation is going to be, I'll go through some of the cells in the Jupyter notebook, and then I'll move on to OneNote to explain things in depth. And finally, when we get the concept, so we'll be able to do the easy implementation of the various functions being mentioned in this notebook. So also I have noted down, some of the doubts you guys faced, and I'll try to address all of them. All right. So basically the data set that we currently have has two columns, column named G2 and G3. G2 is the second year math grades 0 to 100, and G3 is the third year math grades from 0 to 100. So let's start off with this lab. So the first thing is we need to import some libraries. So for this purpose, since we are going to do the implementation from scratch, we'll just need these three libraries. Import NumPy as NP. So NumPy stands for numerical Python. It will be used for matrix calculations and all those calculations, additions, subtractions on the numerical values. Matplotlib is for plotting the string so that you can watch the visualization on screen. Pandas is used for data analysis part so that you can actually visualize these kind of tabular data on your screen. All right. So the first thing is you need to read the data from the provided directory. So inside the directory, we can see like there's a folder called data. Inside the data, we have a file called simplelinear.csv. CSV stands for comma separated values. So I use the function pd.readcsv, and I provide the path of this file, and then I can see like I can print this thing. So right now we can see like there are 395 rows, that is 395 training examples of two columns, G2 and G3. Now the next cell says that you have to insert, a column that can be named anything. Right now I'm taking it as G1, and we have to give the value as 1. So I'll basically tell you why are we doing this shortly. And after that, we can print the shape of this data frame. So we can see the shape of this data frame is 395, 3. That is 395 rows of data and 3 columns, G1, G2, G3. So earlier there was no G1. Now we have used this G1. So basically this data.insert function takes the index, like where do you need to insert? Since I provided 0, so in Python we know that 0 is the starting index. So this means at the starting index, insert a column named G1 having values 1 throughout. So that is what is happening. And then the task was to print out the 48 to 55th rows of data. So that is data.iLocation, index location of 40:55. So 40 to 54 rows of data, comma this column. This means you have to print all the columns. Yeah. Let's go through these two things, and then I'll show the working in depth. So first of all, we have to define the input features. Now you can see like this input features is G1 and G2, and G3 is what we need to predict. So for that, we'll be using the data frame that is data. Then you have to provide this G1 and G2. That is, these two together will be acting as an input for X. And for Y, we have used data of G3 because that's the target variable that we are trying to predict. Like basically, if I give you the value of G2, then I want to say, can I predict the value of G3? So based on the marks in year 2, can we do a prediction for the marks in year 3? That is in future. Okay. Now
So
you might be,
excuse me,
yeah.
the data which you give to X should be G2 only, na? Why G1 also?
Yeah, so basically I'll be covering that in 1 minute. So basically I have prepared another presentation for this. So just hold on for a second. Okay. So yeah, now you might be wondering, I have used this parameter called .values. Now, why do I do that? So basically this entire thing is of the type of data frame. That is a pandas object. Now I want to extract only these numbers and I have to store these numbers because like X, I will be doing some multiplications and additions over X. So I want the numerical values. To convert this into a NumPy array, I can directly use the attribute .values. So .values actually returns the NumPy object containing the values. Now you can see if I use x.shape, so I can see like it is 395,2 because we have just used G1 and G2 for this input x. And for y, you can see that the shape is 395, nothing. This implies it's a rank 1 array, or we can say one-dimensional array, which contain these values. Now you can see like if we plot this graph of the points, so we can see like this is how the graph looks like, these points and everything. Okay, now in the further cells, there are lots of functions, predict, mean, squared, and everything. So let's try to understand how these things work. Okay, so I hope the screen is visible, right? This OneNote thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah. So right now we have used this G1, G2, and G3. So right now, you know that we have mentioned the value of 1 throughout for G1, and for G2 and G3, we had some values. Right now we have seen like we have taken G1 and G2 together for X, and then we have taken G3 as Y. So let's understand what exactly is meant by simple linear regression. So the simplest equation of line that we have known till now is y equals to mx plus c, right? Where m stands for the slope and c stands for the intercept. So just a second, yeah. So this m is called the slope, and this is actually responsible for tilting this line. So basically by varying the values of slope, I can actually tilt this line. And c is called the intercept. So basically the meaning of intercept is like at value of x equal to 0, what is that constant value of y that we'll be getting? So basically this c is used to move this curve up and down only in one direction. So if I say c equal to 0, this entire curve comes down to this. That is, it will be passing through origin. And if I say c equal to some value 5 or something, that means it will be cutting the y-axis here at this point. So this is technically known as bias. Now coming on to the question, like what exactly are we trying to do? Like this equation is something like we know in simple linear regression, but here is something else. So let's try to understand how we are able to get this equation. Currently for the weight value, so instead of taking m1, this slope and this thing as separate variables, so let's try to take them commonly under a variable called weight. So weight is nothing but the coefficients. So this weight value W0 and W1, these are known as the coefficients. Since in the case of simple linear regression, we have only two things. But if we go for multiple linear regression, there will be multiple x1. So m1 x1 plus m2 x2 and so on. So for simplicity, we'll be taking them as weights, which are nothing but the coefficients of these input features. Now here I can take out this value of y as W0 times G1 plus W1 times G2, right? So I think this thing is clear. Now, the reason we told you guys to insert a column having one value is because if in this equation, if I keep G1 as 1, because the value of G1 is 1, so this thing reduces down to y equals to W0 plus W1 into G2. Now, if you compare these two equations together, now you will be able to understand that W1 times G2. So here G2 is the x, here W1 corresponds to the slope m, and here W0, that is the first value in the weight matrix, corresponds to the C, that is intercept or bias. So that was the only reason why we told you to take this thing explicitly, so that these two equations, you know, get in the same format. Now we know one thing, like if there are, so one option is you can manually do this multiplication, take out W of 0 into G of 1 plus W of 1 into g of 2. But instead of doing that, there is something known as vectorized format. So let's try to represent this thing in the form of a matrix. So y will be nothing but the input values, that is g1 and g2. We know that we have taken g1 and g2 as input. So we'll be taking g1 and g2. We take the dot product and we do the multiplication with the weight values. So weight values are nothing but, as I told you, these are the coefficient. I'm really sorry because I'm typing with the mouse, so it's not very easy. So yeah, so if I try to expand this, so you know that by a simple dot product, that will be W0 times G1 plus W1 times G2. And that is exactly what we have seen here. So that is the only reason we were taking this. So NumPy, the most beautiful thing about NumPy is you don't need to actually do explicit loops and explicit indexing to, indicate values. What you can do is you can simply do a dot product, and that is what is meant by vectorization. So in supervised learning, we do the prediction. This y hat is nothing but the hypothesis, or we can say the predicted or the output. So we do the dot product between x and weights like we did here. And the reason it's called simple linear regression, as I told you earlier also, because we have only two parameters, the bias term and the slope one. So W0 corresponds to the bias term and W1 corresponds to the slope term. So while training, what we do is while training, since it's a supervised learning, so the mentor actually what he does is he has the value of y and this. So he tells the model, you know what, you take the value of input and take these random values of weights initially. Do the multiplication and tell me the predicted value. Now, once you tell me the predicted value, I already know what's the correct value. So comparing both of these things, I will actually tell you like, are you going in the right direction or not? And accordingly, I'll actually guide you. So let's actually understand, once we do the prediction, we get the y hat. This is something that we have done on our own. How do we get to know like our model is doing correct or not? So yeah, so let's go on to the loss function. So what is the meaning of loss function? Loss means you are losing something. So whenever we have the correct value, for example, if I say my correct value is 4 and you predict it to be 3. So how do I different? And let's suppose the second example, my correct value is 4 and you predict it as 5. How will the function know like this prediction is not that accurate? In that case, we actually try to take the 1 by m. So m hat stands for the number of training examples. For in our case, we have taken m to be 395. So so summation of y true, that is the true value of y that is already being given, minus y prediction that we are trying to take out through this formula, the dot product of x and weights. We take a difference of these two and we do the square. And we divide this thing by m. So we all know that summation of something divided by this thing is something known as mean. So yeah. Now, why are we taking this, square function? Why can't we take the mod function? So let me explain this. Like, why do we do this? So basically, there are two reasons. The first reason is we don't care. So just a second, let me change this color. Okay. So first off is we really don't care the value that is being predicted is more or less. That is, we are not trying to make any differentiation. To explain this, for example, if the predicted value is 4 and the for example, if the true value is 4 and the predicted value is 3, then the error will come out to be 4 minus 3, that is 1. Whole square is also 1. And similarly, if you predict the value to be more than 4, still the value will be 4 minus 5, that is minus 1, and square is 1. So it actually doesn't matter you predict more or less. The only criteria is you should be predicting close to this. And for, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Doesn't mod do the same thing, like eliminating the case of sign?
Exactly. So basically, just hold on for 2 minutes. I'll be showing like why don't we take the mod value.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the most intuitive part comes here is, and the second most reason. So that's the reason why we are going for this thing is because the square function is a convex function. So basically, a convex function has one minima in our case, and that one minima acts as both the local minima as well as the global minima. Now, let's suppose if I take this thing, the mod value. So basically, I'll show later like why exactly we don't take this. So let me try to explain this thing first. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with the basic mathematics. So whenever we plot the loss function, this function on this graph, so since we are doing a square value, so that represents an equation of parabola. So that's how we get the curve. And the optimal value of W is this one, this bottommost point. And why do I say it's the optimal value of W? Because corresponding to these value of the weights. So you might know that the weights are this thing, because ultimately input is something we have as constant. Only the weights will be changing, and based on these multiplication only, we'll be getting the value of Y cap, that is the predicted value. So in the loss function, we can see, like, let's try to apply a basic mathematics. So if I have a weight value, for example, if I have a weight value here, and what do you think the weight value should move on to? So the options are, does it need to move up and towards the right, or does it need to move down and towards the left? Can someone answer? Option 1 or option 2? Anyone?
Since we have to minimize the loss, probably towards the left in this case.
Exactly, perfect. So the option 2 will work. Since we have to minimize, we have to move it towards this optimal value. So we have to go down and left. Similarly, if the weight value is starting somewhere here, we have to go right and then we have to go down. So that is something. So we need to alter the value of W equal to W minus or plus something, so that it is able to move in this direction. So let's actually see how does this thing work. So minus, let's take up the slope value M. So we know that the by basic mathematics, the value of M is difference between the Y values and difference between the X values. So just hold on for a second. Example, so basically here was the main game is, so if I draw the gradient of this point, so I'll observe, like, here if I take x1 and here if I take x2, so here I can see like the difference in y2 and y1 is coming out to be positive. So that means if I'm on the right side, I'm getting a positive number. That means I should do a subtraction. In that case, it will come on to left. If I'm on the left side, I will get the slope as negative. So negative and negative comes out to be positive. That means I'm bringing it towards the right. Now this line that I have drawn, this is something known as the gradient. So the next step is we need to find the gradient of this loss function, and accordingly we will be moving down for the convergence. So let's go for the gradient descent. So gradient descent is simply like, it's the learning algorithm. So we know that the only thing that we have to do is update the value of the weights. So let's see how does this happen. So for gradient descent, we can imagine like we are on a mountain slope, and if we are on the top, so we can take large steps because it is not that steep. But if we're going towards the bottom, we need to take slow steps. So that we are not jumping from here to here. So that is what the ultimate thing that gradient descent does. So here we have the loss function, that is 1 upon m times summation of this thing square. Now why I have written 2 is because you will realize, like, when I take the gradient of this function, 2 comes down and 2 and 2 gets cancelled out. So that this is basically optional. So basically if I take the partial derivative of this function with respect to j, so you will observe that 1 upon m stays like this summation stays the same, and this 2 comes down, and we have to differentiate this thing 2 times this particular function, and then we get minus of xj, that is the input. So that's one of the formula for the gradient. Now the last thing that I would like to show is we need to update the value of weights. Ultimately, we know like the entire game is about the getting the right value of weights. So basically, if I am taking this gradient, now the thing is, this is what the formula of this weight updation is. W equals to W minus alpha. So we have seen here loss function. Why do we need to do a minus based on the value of the slope? Now this is a gradient that we have calculated here. So because that is the slope of this equation. If I take, very low, so first thing to note here is we have a value of m as 400 in our case. If I take very low value of m, what will happen is the steps taken will be very small, and there is a possibility that after many iterations it might just reach till here. In that case, this value will be given as the loss function, which is not the optimal solution. Contrary to this, if I take a large value of alpha, what will happen is it will, so basically this is a gradient. It will take, for example, so it will take large steps. And here the gradient might come out like this, it may go here. Then here it may come out like this, it may go here. So what happens is it basically shoots up. So you might have observed, like if you have taken large values of alpha, so there you must have got the overflow error. So that is how this the entire thing works about alpha. So if I take 2 value of alpha, so the learning rate becomes very low. If I take just the right amount of thing, it is able to reach this point smoothly. And if I take very high values of this, it will be taking abrupt jumps in this case. And in that way, it won't be able to converge. So since we have just 400 examples, so having an alpha of approximately 10 power minus 3 to 10 power minus 4 would do the work, because in that it will be taking small steps and also it will be converging well. So yeah, so that's the only thing about this thing. And the reason, like someone was asking, just let me explain this one part, and then I think we can go with the implementation within 5 minutes. Two things: if I have extremely large value of like m, like 10 power 8 examples, like this many examples, so obviously I can't use the value of alpha as 0.0001 initially, because it will take ages to come down. So what I do is initially I take the value of alpha to be large so that it can take large values initially. And once it is almost midway down, we can reduce the value of alpha to something. So this is something known as alpha decay, and this is something you can search. Apart from that, like someone was asking, why can't we take the mod function? So if I take a mod function, it's a V-shaped thing. We can take a mod function. The only thing, like you must have read online, like it is not differentiable here. Actually, that doesn't matter if it's differentiable or not. But the problem comes is when we do the derivative, at some points of time, it is not differentiable. So that's what the main problem is. Apart from that, the second reason is V, between U and V is almost like a 45 degree curve. So if I take the gradient at this point, if it comes out like this, and if I take quite a big, like even if I take an alpha of 0.0001, so basically I've tried this thing also, then also you will observe that the error gets shoot up. The reason being is it is very steep. If you take quite a big value, then you will end up somewhere else and it will start to get diverging. But if you want to use this function only, then what you can basically do is you can use extremely low values of alpha, so that at every step down, so for example, it will stay on the line. So that's what the main motive is. So yeah, so let's go through the implementation. Now I think it should be clear. So yeah, so these are the input values.
Do you think one more reason could be that the square sort of punishes outliers?
Exactly. So that is something I was willing to take up towards the end. Okay, so we can discuss that point again. So basically, if I take the square function, so like what exactly happens, it penalizes the outliers. So what do I exactly mean by penalizing is, so that is something I'll be telling you later. Okay. So predict. So basically the first thing was to predict things. So we have seen right now in the OneNote app that for making a prediction, we need to do a dot product. So here we go. The simple code is np ... x, weights. That's it. So basically you don't need to do explicitly like y pred of 0 equals to x of 0 into w weights of 0. So instead of that, you can use a vectorized implementation.
Vineet,
Yeah.
Dheeraj wants to ask something.
Yeah, sure.
If we don't put the G1 in the X, then it will be affected or not? The result will be affected or not?
Yeah, so if I don't use X1, still the result will be accepted. So it's not that you have to use G1, but just for the sake, so that these two things comes out. Because if you are not using any kind of intercept, then by default, you will be making your function go through origin. So I think that's clear to you.
A better way to explain this is that, like, see, you have the equation as y is equal to mx plus c, right?
Yeah.
Now, the ultimate equation is y is equal to w0 g1 plus w1 g2. So
Yeah.
if you remove g1 out of it, then you also
Yeah.
remove w0 indirectly.
Yeah.
So you only remain with mx, and that's
Yeah.
not enough. So you have to include g1 as well.
No. See, even if you include mx, that's not a big issue. But the reason we are doing is because if you include mx, then y equal to mx simply means like every time it has to pass through the origin. Then that means you are creating a restriction that your line has to start from origin. Getting my point?
Yeah, that's what I meant, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I think this function should be clear. np ... x and weights for predicting. Then for the mean square error, like we have seen the loss function, summation of 1 by m. So summation of 1 by m is basically the mean. And I have told you like why I have done half, because like during the gradient, this 2 comes down, so it becomes easier to calculate the gradient. So half of np dot mean, so that's a function in numpy, and then y true minus y prediction square. And then we can go on to the gradient thing. So for gradient, again, we have seen the formula for gradient. Let me show it once again. Yeah, so this is what the thing is. So numpy dot mean of this particular thing into x, that is the input. So that is what we have done. Numpy dot mean y true minus y pred into x of this. So this thing means take up all the rows and the first column, that is corresponds to G1. And we know that this value is actually 1. And similarly for gradient of 1, we can use numpy dot mean y pred minus y true times x of 1. That is the take the column corresponding to G2. Now here comes the most important part that we were dealing about, and that is about the gradient descent, putting all of these things together. So right now we have randomly initialized the weight values, and then we have the losses. So we have been given 100 number of iterations at default. So we run a loop because we have to train this entire thing 100 times. So first of all, so a simple thing is, first of all, what you need to do is, since you have the x, so x is something that is given, weights is something that we have randomly initialized at the starting, and our main motive is to find these value of weights so that the loss function is minimized. We do the prediction. So given the values of x and weights, we take out the value of y prediction. Once we get the value of y prediction, we have our supervisor or mentor who will tell us how much the difference is there between our prediction and the true value. So that is done with the help of mean squared error. We will basically append these losses in a list called losses. After that, we calculate the gradient of the loss function. Once we calculate the gradient of the loss function, we need to do the updation of the weights. And this is basically a core part of the gradient descent algorithm. So weights equals to weights of 0 minus learning rate times gradient of this. So if the weights are occurring on the right side, so the slope will be positive, it will be shifted towards left. And if they are occurring on the left side, they will be shifted towards the right.
One thing. Another thing, this weight updation can also be vectorized actually. So what you do is, basically you write weights equal to, can you show up that slide? Yeah, weights equal to weights minus learning rate into grad. You see, exactly, these both grad and weights have the same dimension. So you can basically do vectorization on this as well.
Yes. So basically the reason, because like I already showed this vectorization here. So basically like most of the people have implemented in this way only. So that's the reason I actually did like that. So yeah, so basically instead of this, you can also do grad equals to numpy dot mean. You can actually copy this thing. So actually that thing also works pretty well, because ultimately then you can do y prediction minus y true. And then you can multiply it straight away by x, because like ultimately both of them have the same dimension. So it will automatically break down into gradient of 0 into this. So this thing actually breaks down into this thing. So yeah. So same thing can be done here also. Once you do that, so you are actually printing the loss values. So right now, because we have less number of training examples, so I have taken the learning rate to be 10 power minus 3. And then I've taken 40 number of iterations. Now we can see like initially the loss value is something higher, and then it keeps on getting low, and it converges, flattens out at 50. Now if I show the loss curve, so we can see like that's how it is getting 50. So the mean square error right now is 50. Now you can see the predicted line. Now here is the concept of outliers. So I think I'll be finishing up in next 2 minutes. So yeah. Now you can see that this is a predicted line. If I take this point, for this point, the predicted value is approximately 40, and the actual value is approximately 40, and the predicted value is coming out to be something 42. So the error in this will be 42 minus 40, that is 2, and whole square is 4. So that means the error in here is 4. But if you can take a look at this point is having an actual value of 0, but the predicted value is coming out to be 40. So the difference in this thing is 40 minus 0 is 40, and whole square is 1600. So that means because of these 7 little points, so we can observe that the entire that loss error is extremely high, and that is how this squared error, mean square error, is actually able to predict out, take out these outliers in a way, because for the outliers the loss that we get is very high. Now, what we can simply do is, here there was one little piece of code which stated, just a second, yeah, removing the outliers. So if I remove the outliers, so I can see like 25 points have been removed. So yeah, now I can see like these points have been removed. So let's see how exactly our, this thing gets affected. So now you can see that the loss value comes straight away down to 8. So yeah. And finally, like what we can do is we can actually have a this prediction like like a data frame, like the actual value was 30, it is predicted to be 30, so it's almost close. Last thing that I would like to show is like the last thing in the session was mentioned about the initialization. So as far as machine learning is concerned, and since we have only 400 rows of data, so you do it like zero initialization. So what happens is initially for the first iteration, all the predicted values will be 0. So the loss will be initially very high, but eventually after 5-6 iteration, it will converge to the same value. But in case of deep learning, where we have numerous number of layers, we observe that if I take zero initialization of weights, the entire code is same. Just because of the zero initialization of weights, the accuracy falls to 50%. If I do a random initialization, it falls to 83. And with ZV initialization, that is following normal distribution, it falls to 99%. So we can observe that this weight initialization is a very important step. And I think in the upcoming classes, we'll be learning about that. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. If someone has some doubts, they can ask, or else we can move on with Manohar.